So let's see, get the template out in Google Classroom. I'll go do that too. I think it's week 26. And we're going to need a programming window as well, an idle window. So I'm going to go ahead and open those up myself. Okay, I'm going to write the pseudocode over here in a different document. I don't want to mess up the template, but you should write it on your template. It has a place right there. Insert your pseudocode here on the template. So that's where you would write it at. I'm going to write it over here. Let's look at our pseudocode and see what we're going to do. Pick a category, make a list of your 5 favorite things. And it gives some suggestions if you don't have an idea. 5 favorite actors, books, cars, whatever. Code to program, use Python idle, have a main function, heading. So I always like to start the pseudocode with name, date, and program, just because that's at the top of every program. So that would be the top of our pseudocode, and defining our main function. Guess I can put the whole words in pseudocode. So that's what I'm going to start my pseudocode is name, date, and program, because that's what we do with all of them, and our main function. And this said right off the bat to make a list. Make a list of 5 favorite. And this is where you get to pick. What do you want to make a list of? So choose what you want to make a list. I'm going to do 5 favorite. Well, let me see. Names that start with P. Just for fun. I've had people make all kinds of lists. Favorite movies, favorite Marvel characters, favorite characters in a movie. That's fine. Favorite books, favorite songs by a specific artist. You can make your list over whatever. Use meaningful names for all variables. Ask the user what their favorite is. Okay. Ask user for their favorite name. In my case, I'm asking, here's my favorite 5 favorite names that start with P. What's your favorite name that starts with P? So we got to ask the user what their favorite is. And then by creating a list, a loop, and if statements, we have to print a message to let the user know if their favorite matches what's on your list. It says as I scroll over, it matches any of the ones on your list. So that means we're going to check to see if user's choice is on my list. Print results. We'll say print yes or no. Make that easy. Right. So I'm going to make my list. I'm going to ask the user their favorite. I'm going to check to see, hey, is their favorite on my list? And then I'll let them know, hey, that's my favorite too. Or, oh, no, that's not on my list, but that's a good one, or whatever. And then the last thing it says we have to do is print your list to the screen and be sure to number each item. So print my numbered list. And that's it, right? The pseudocode. So really, this is all we have to have for pseudocode. That gives us all of the requirements of the program. So if you've got at least that much written in your pseudocode, if you put some more detail, that's fine too. But that is the basics. That covers everything that it says in the template. So once we have that, we can now trade our template for a programming window. I'm going to leave the pseudocode up here on the screen just so we can use that to refer to. Oh, I got it too far. There we go. Just so we can refer to that as we write our program. All right, so the first thing in my pseudocode reminds me to put my name, date, and purpose up there. So I'll pause here after I get this to make sure you've had time to open up an idle window and get this going. This is the 11th of March that we're doing this. And this is the 4.04 lists program. And I have to define my main function. Make sure you've had time to open up a Python idle window. Remember, you go to any lesson not an assignment. Go to a lesson, and at that top menu, it'll have that red menu at the top of the screen, or whatever color it is for you, because you may have a different color scheme going than I have. But it'll have that menu at the top, and idle will be one of the menu things. Next, it says make a list of your 5 favorite things there. So, our list has to have a name. So we got, of course, in our main function, we got to have 4 spaces. We got to indent everything that's part of the main function. So give your list a name that kind of represents what the list is. Mine's going to call P names. That makes sense. Mine's going to be names that start with P. So I'm going to call my list P names, which doesn't sound too appealing now that I say it out loud, but that's okay. So call it whatever list you're making. You know, you can call it cars, artists, songs, movies, fave movies, something that makes sense for what your list is going to be. And to create a list in Python, it goes inside brackets, not the parentheses, but the actual square brackets. It's over by the P on your keyboard, right above like the enter. You'll see those square brackets. So you got to have a name equals, and then inside the brackets is where we're going to put our list. And everything in your list has to be separated by commas. So we can put as many things as you want, but we're just putting 5. So if it's words, which in this case it is, because I thought about going my favorite prime numbers. If it's numbers in the list, you can just, put numbers, and you don't have to worry about putting anything, that would work if it's numbers. But since I'm not doing numbers, I'm doing words, you have to put it in quotes. Like Penelope. That's a good P name. So I would put Penelope and then a comma and then my next list. So then I'll put Pappy, which is more of a nickname than a name, but Paxton. Let's see what other P names was I gonna put in there. Patty. I like Patty. And I had another one. What was the other one I was gonna do? Pete. Pete. I like Pete. Pete. I used to use that one all the time. I used to call my kids Pete, and they're all girls, but I would say, "What's up, Pete?" Just for the fun of it. Strike through. There we go. I'm just going to cross them off, so they're still there. They're crossed off. Okay, so we've got the 5 favorite names. Ask user for their favorite name. So that would be an input statement, and I need to name it and save it something. I'm going to say user fave. I'm just going to call it user fave, F-A-V. So asking the user's favorite, right? User fave equals, and it would be an input statement. Now, remember, if you're doing something that has a number, you'd use it. You'd put like integer in front of this. But I'm not doing an integer. I'm doing words. So I'm saying input, and I'm going to ask them, what is your favorite? And this is where you put your category. Name starting with P. Okay, that's what I'm putting in mine. So that's what you should have next. You got to save it as something because we're going to check it. An input statement. And then inside the parentheses, put the question that you're putting on the screen so the user can see that. What is your favorite? And then whatever your category is. Okay, so we've done that. Ask the user their favorite name. Okay, I don't know where I got the strike through. Oh, it's right there. Okay, check to see if users' choices on my list. Okay, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to make a loop. So the loop will go through and check everything one by one. Because if we have here, I'm just going to put this just to show you this. So you don't have to put this in there. If we printed P names right now, and I need to put a main function down at the bottom, just so it'll do this. If I just printed the list, what's your favorite name beginning P? Pete. It'll print it just like that. But if we print them one by one, we can do like print just the 0 name. I'm going to put a comment so it doesn't ask me every time. This just prints like Penelope because that's the 0 name in the list. If I say print the 2 name in the list, that's the 3rd one. Because remember, Python goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, knowing that this is how I can refer to names individually is important because we need to check individually. If I just have it say, is the user fave equal to P names, they would have to type all 5 names on the list for it to be equal. Here, I'm going to take that off now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a loop for loop in range. And the range of my loop is going to start at 0 because I want to check the very first 0 item on the list. And it's going to go however long the list is. There's a command len. Remember, that's length. So I said check however long P names is and go that many times in my loop. The length of my list. Well, in this case, my list has 5 things. So basically my loop is going from 0 to 5. But I'm not going to put 0 to 5 because maybe I'll add things to my list later. Maybe my list has 20 things. And I don't want to have to change this if the number of things on the list changes. I'll just have it automatically check through everything in the list. Okay. So once I've started this loop, here's what I'm going to do inside the loop. You got to indent everything that's part of the loop. If user fave, if theirs matches P names, whatever loop number we're on, then I want to print that's one of my favorites too. All right. That is how we're going to check it. We're going to create a loop that's going to go through my entire list, 0 to the length of my list. So it's going to start there. And it's going to look if the user favorite, what they typed in, oh, I got to put 2 equals. I'm going to have an error right there. Remember, on an if statement, we have to use 2 equal signs. 1 equal sign says make this equal to that. 2 says is that equal to that. 2 equal signs. I almost had an error there. If the user fave equals, and the first time through the loop equals 0. So it's going to look at the 0 item because I said whatever loop number you're on, that's what I want you to check. It's going to check does the user favorite equal Penelope in my case. If it matches, if this is true, then it will go down and print. That's one of my favorites. If it's not, it won't print that. It'll go to the loop again and say, okay, now let's check 1 because it started at 0 and now the second time through it'll be at 1. So is the user favorite equal to Pappy? If it is, it'll print. If not, it'll check 2, then it'll check 3, then it'll check 4, and then 5 is the stop number. The length is 5, so it says, okay, I won't go through the 5th time. But this is how it will check, and then we'll test it next. So after you get these, go ahead and put like a main down here in line 14 or somewhere down below, just so we can run. It won't run until we put that ending main statement down there because that says, hey, I'm done with the program. Go ahead and run the main function now. So after that's done, put main down there and then test it. Make sure that it pops up and asks you for your favorite. Type in one that's on your list. I'm going to put Pappy and hit OK. It should print out the message that matched one of the favorites. If you typed it the same way, you got to capitalize the same things. You got to spell it exactly the same. Don't put any extra spaces or anything there. And that should work. And then test it with something that doesn't work. Name starts with P. Poopy. That doesn't sound like a good P name. And it didn't print anything because I printed a name that wasn't there. So test it there. Run it and make sure that when you type a name that is, or not a name, whatever's on your, when you type an item that is on your favorite list, that it prints and tells you that's on the favorite list. And if you type something that's not on the list, it shouldn't do anything. Because right now it only prints something if it's on the favorite list. We've checked to see if it's on the list, but we haven't really printed that it's not on the list. So we need to figure out a way to do that. Okay. Right now, it'll print only when it's true. Now let's play with the logic of this a little bit. We could, and don't put this because I'm going to show you why this is not really the best way to do it. We could say else print that's not one of my favorites. Okay, we could do that, but I'll show you why that is not the best thing here. This goes to, if that's true, it'll print one of my favorites. If it's not true, we'll say it's not one of my favorites. But let's do this. I'm going to put Paul, because that's not on my list. And look what it does. 5 times it says that's not one of my favorites. That's because every time through the loop, it's yes or no. Do I print this or do I print this? Oh, Paul didn't match Penelope, so I'll print this. Did Paul match Pappy? Nope, then I'll print this. Did it match Paxton? So every time through when it doesn't match, and even when it does match, what if I put Penelope? Penelope, which is on my list. It says that's one of my favorite, and it says it's not one of my favorites 4 times. So that's not the best way to do that. Let's figure something else out. Let's go up here to line 9 and create a new variable called match equals no. So we're going to say whatever they type is not going to match. But if it does match, let's change it. Underneath the print statement, let's say, hey, they matched. So all we've done so far is we've set us like a marker. We set a marker to say, okay, they're not going to match. But if they do, I'm going to change that. And then after our loop, when our loop is entirely over, I'm going to go back underneath the 4. So this is not part of the loop. It's right down here. If match equals no. So in other words, it never changed it to yes. They never did match anything after the loop. We went through the whole loop 5 times. It never matched. So now we know to go ahead and print nice name, but not one of my favorites. Or however you want to say it. So see how that works? I've set this variable to say, okay, it doesn't match. And then I'm going to check. I said that before I even checked. No, it doesn't match. But then I'm going to check, okay, if it does match, go ahead and change that to say, okay, yeah, it really did match. And then after I get through checking everything, if it still equals no, then I'm going to print it's not one of my favorites. So that will work as long as you indent properly. This if match equals no should not be part of the loop. Everything that's part of the loop is indented farther than the loop. Farther than the loop. So we do not want this indented inside the loop. We want this to be directly under the F in the for loop. So we can test this now. I'll put Paul. Look, it only puts it once. Nice name, but not one of my favorites. If I put a name that is on there, Penelope, that's one of my favorites. So that's what we want. We want it to print 1 time, yes or no. That's one of my favorites. That's not one of my favorites. If it's still printing it 5 times, you probably have the line 14 if statement indented too far. You probably have it underneath your loop. You don't want it to be part of your loop. So it has to come back to where it's only lined up underneath the loop. If you've got that done, then we have done this part of our pseudocode. We've got the yes or no taken care of. All that's left is to print my numbered list. And we can do that with a loop as well, because we can print the list. That's easy. Just say print the list, whatever name your list is, but it will not number it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same loop. In fact, I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to copy that loop, and I'm going to go down here and put it again. I got to make sure the spacing is right. I went and copied, which for me is line 10, and I went down and put it like on line 17. Before that, forgot about that. Let me do this. I'm going to print a blank line and then print, here are my top 5. I just want to print a blank line because I think it would, I don't want to jumble it all together. You don't have to put a blank line if you want, but right in front of that loop, I move the loop down. I'm printing a blank line, and then I'm printing, here are my top 5. I guess I'll put a colon after that. I think it's kind of nice when we throw our list on the screen to give it a little heading, letting them know, by the way, here's the list. Here's my 5. Here's my favorites. Here's my top 5. Here's, whatever we want to say that. So we've got the loop. So inside the loop now, what we're going to do is print them. 4 spaces, print, and we'll tell it to print the loop, which is a number. So we have to put it as a string. The loop is an actual number. So I want it to print the loop number, but I'll show you in just a moment because we're going to fix this. And then I want to concatenate it with a space because I don't want the number to be right up against it, and print my list. Where's my list? P names, one at a time. Just like we check them one at a time by using the loop number, we're going to print them one at a time by using the loop number. The first time through, it'll grab my 0 name. When I run it like this, here, let me put Paul in there again. It prints it and numbers it, but it numbers it 0 to 4. So we can fix that real easy by when we print it, tell it to add 1 to the loop number. I know you're on loop number 0, but would you add 1 where it looks good for me? I want it to be printed 1 to 5. But it should go through and it should pull every one of yours names from your list, or your foods, or your movies, or your favorite Marvel characters, or your favorite ways to tease your little brother, or whatever you're doing. So let's test it after you get that. Put a name that's not on your list. Make sure, there it is. Tells no. Print your top 5. Put something that is on your list. Patty, one of my favorites too. And if that works, hit save. You're done. Save. There you go. It saved my zip file. So I have a zip file to turn in. And then all I have left to do now is I have to go back to the template and answer these questions at the bottom. Just give me your thoughts. What's the purpose of your program? Well, it was to make a list and, ask the user and see if there's on my list. How can it be useful in the real world? There's lots of ways a program such as this could be useful in the real world, where you ask the user for something and then you check to see if it's on the list. Figure out how you think that could be used. You probably use programs like that. What's the problem you ran into? It was an error. Maybe you didn't have any errors. If you just typed what I was typing and waited for me to fix the errors, because I kind of did some things differently. Like, it said no 5 times. That was something we had an error. We had to go back and change that. And what might you do differently next time? How could you improve what you did on that program? So, all right. So yeah, as long as it's printing yes or no, that's a favorite. And numbered top 5 list. You guys are done. Yeah, turn that in for 4.04. Fill out the questions on the template. Those questions are worth 20 points out of the 100. The pseudocode's worth 10 points. So the program's only worth 70 out of the 100. So you want to be sure and fill out the template as well.